Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots-on-the-ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few quick reminders. Tickets are still available for our Hawaii conference in April 20th through the 24th on the Big Island. There's less than 30 tickets left, so grab one now and join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We just added Debbie Solaris to the lineup, and she will be joining us on the podcast very soon. We're super excited about that. She's specifically going to be talking about Lemuria and Atlantis and the Hawaii connection, so that's going to be great. And you can find all that information at journeytotruth.online, along with information about our upcoming documentary, A Lifetime of Silence Behind the Green Door, a case for the secret space program. It's something that we've been working on for a few years now, and it's set for a soft release on January 9th in a movie theater here in Sedona. And then we will be putting it on Amazon Prime and anywhere else we can after that. So stay tuned for that. We can't wait to see everyone at the premiere in Sedona. There are no tickets left. It is sold out, but if you are local and you happen to be in the area, we might be able to pull in an extra seat at the last minute. So just reach out to us. You can email us if you're interested in that. But today we're excited to dive deep into some amazing topics that Mary Joyce has been covering for a while. She's an author who has worked for two major metropolitan area newspapers as a feature editor, Sunday magazine editor, columnist, and artist. On the side, she has written magazine articles and books. Currently, she is editor and main researcher for the Sky Ships Over Cashiers website, which features a wide variety of cutting-edge subjects. And one of the things we're going to get into today is her book called Spy in the Sky, Secrets and Cover-Ups on Earth and Beyond. And this book has been removed from the internet, from what I understand. In fact, I had to write Mary a check and snail mail it to her, and then she had to mail me the book to even get this because it contains photos that they don't want on the internet, specifically photos of ancient civilizations in Antarctica, anomalies on the moon, Mars, and beyond. So welcome to the show, Mary. We're very excited to have you with us today.
Hi, guys. It's nice to see you and talk to you one-on-one. That's great. Or two-on-one.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Definitely.
I just kind of read through your bio, so I guess that gave people a brief background, but is there anything you'd like to add to that to help people understand how you got into this and why you started doing this research?
The thing that helps me the most is at one point in my life, I worked for newspapers. And so I take the same approach in researching and documenting and really, really trying to find the evidence, not just putting anything out there. There's too many people out there. They have this great photo. You don't know when it was taken, where it was taken, nothing. And I try to give people as much information as I can. And that's the influence of working in the newspaper business back in the day when newspapers were a big thing. So that's one thing. I did not discover this world of UFOs and all these mysteries through the newspapers. At one point, I was working for a college in Florida between Patrick Air Force Base and the Kennedy Space Center. That's when I began to see UFOs. That's when I began to meet people at the, at NASA at various capacities. And that's where my interest really grew. And then when I moved to North Carolina, and I'm here in the mountains, we began to see all sorts of UFOs over a tiny mountain town called Cashers, and it's really more like a village. And that's how the website got its name, skyshipsovercashers.com. I wish we hadn't named it that because we've gone way beyond the title. We get into all sorts of things, and but you don't change the name of something midstream. It just, you lose people, and that you just can't do it.
Right, yeah. So that's amazing, and you've also written a book called Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains, which, you, basically interview whistleblowers, and you can include photographs and stuff like that. So your research is extensive, and I like that, you bring some tangible evidence to the table, and, we appreciate that. So I guess let's talk about why you believe your book Spy in the Sky was, banned from the Internet.
There's so many things that I have found by searching using Google Earth, and I would post it on the website, and within a day or two, it would be wiped off of Google. It would either be blurred out or wiped out. One of the most dramatic wipeouts was down in Antarctica. I found two entrances into that continent. The biggest one was like these are round figures, was like 300 feet across and about 100 feet tall. So a good sized vehicle could fly into that. The other one was a little bit smaller and actually had something that looks just like a metal awning over it. When I posted those, I think it was the next day. It couldn't have been more than 2 days. I opened that up again. It's like somebody took a bottle of black ink and poured it all over the whole area. And then I got a nudge a little bit later, and very briefly, and that's why I really think the nudge was important. It said Hollow Earth Entrance and Hollow Earth Entrance 2. And those labels were there for just a tiny bit of time. And then that whole area now looks like a sheet of ice or snow. So I've had many, many, many things that I have found that have been quickly disappeared. And sometimes it happens rather dramatically. I was working one morning, I think it was on a weekend. I found something in Antarctica. I contacted somebody, and I'm not going to do name dropping, except this is somebody you would have seen on Ancient Aliens. And I said,
Mm.
I will send you a copy of it right after I take a shower. I did not take a long shower. I came back, and that area where I had found something had a slight oval look, but it was all white. So it had turned white like all the rest of the snow or the ice around it. But you could faintly see the oval shape. Wasn't like the digital images. It was a true oval, like a cutout. Boom. I've had tons of experiences like that. So I know there's things the famous they don't want the public to know. And that book has had obstacles all in many, many ways. And so the only way you can really get it now is you go to the website, skyshipsovercashers.com. And on the home page, there's Editor's Corner. Open it up right at the top of Editor's Corner. It'll tell you how to get the book. And I'm not making any money out of this. Please believe me, this is an effort to get the information out. So,
Right. In fact, I bought one book from you, and you sent me two. You sent me the North America one as well, so I appreciate that. And so the Antarctica anomalies, when you said Hollow Earth 1 and 2, what said Hollow Earth? Google Earth said that? Or
it
where
said
did
it on Google Earth, yes. It was
interest
just there for a little bit. I think it was there to give people, somebody, a reference point, but it only stayed there. I don't know. It was very brief. I feel lucky I caught it. And it's in the book. You can see the different stages of that particular cover up. And probably all your listeners or watchers know about this. There is a print screen key on your computer keyboard. Be ready to hit that if you ever find something really spectacular, because it may disappear. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be able to share before and after images of many of these things.
and were those the
Right.
only 2 anomalies that you found in Antarctica, or was
Oh,
there
no,
more?
no, no. And I wonder, well, I can understand why they might want to hide those entrances, because if they're active, They don't want people to know that. So I actually understand that. But the ice has been melting really, really fast in Antarctica, and we have found the remains of 5 ancient cities where you can still see the walls. Obviously, the roofs are gone. Those were blurred out very quickly, too. That continent, supposedly, according to most scientists, has been under ice for like 34 million years, really a long time. And this would be the oldest remnants of anything on the whole planet, if it's, more than 34 million years old. But they're hiding that. Why do they want to hide our ancient history? I do not know, but they actively do it. And they've done it in many other ways. I could go on and on about things that have been covered up just on Earth. NASA, which is on Paradise Island, is a focal point. Just south of there, I found 2 pyramids. Once I posted those on the website, it's like somebody took a Band-Aid that was made out of photographic material and put it right on top of that. So again, if I hadn't had the print key, I wouldn't be able to show you the before and after of that cover-up. So there's a lot they're trying to keep from us.
So Paradise
Absolutely.
Island, where's that at?
It's in the Bahamas. Most people have heard of NASA or NASA, however they say it, and that's where that town is. So it would be just south of an island that many, many tourists go to.
Right. Interesting. So but the tourists don't see the pyramids when they're there, I guess? They're in the jungle or
Well,
something?
they're under the water. They're in
Oh,
the bottom of the ocean.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Under
I
the
didn't
water.
say that, but that's
Yeah.
what I meant. I'm sorry.
Right. So, okay, let's talk about some of these under ocean anomalies that you've noticed.
Well, one, I think in your intro, you talked about having some kind of a event or program that's coming up about Lemuria and Atlantis.
Yeah.
We've all heard about the legends of it, Lemuria forever. I spent a great deal of time exploring the coast from Alaska all the way down to Baja and found ancient ruins, which would give credence to the idea that Lemuria was a real place. The thing I was the most impressed by was in the waters between the Baja Peninsula and the mainland. There is an underwater, it looks like an airport strip. And in the book, I show a picture of that, and I show a picture of a contemporary airport. And the layout is so similar. The big difference is the size. The longest runway in the world today is not too much more than 3 miles in length. This one is 39 miles long.
Wow.
Everything that I found along the coast in the water is huge, which there are rumors that the Lemurians were very large people, and the size of that airport alone would give validity to that idea.
Right. And when you say that, so you leave your computer and come back, it's almost like somebody hacks your computer
Oh,
and
I know I'm being watched. I just
because
live with it. That's just the way it is.
right. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think you have to if you live in fear or in paranoia
No,
about that. Yeah.
that's not going to make life good for anybody.
Right. So, but I guess I'm just trying to understand. That means somebody can easily go into your computer, take the photograph and Photoshop it, and then it still remains in on your file, but it's just changed.
No. What's changing is Google. So
Okay.
if anybody goes to Google, they will find that it's been blurred out or erased or replaced with something else.
Oh, on
It's
Google
not
Earth.
change. It's not changing what I have in my computer. It's changing what Google has, and I just happen to have the information on my computer.
Ah, I see. Okay. So,
But they also, you're right. They also are able to know what I'm doing. It happened early on, maybe 3 computers ago. And one day I was working on stuff at night, and I thought, well, I'll finish it up in the morning. So I got up, and it was gone. Well, then I soon discovered that every file, a folder that I had that had anything to do with UFOs was gone. And the man who was in charge of, he was the expert for fixing computers at Western Carolina University, which is very close. And he came over to check out my computer. And this was a long time ago. And he basically said, I've never seen anything like it. I can't even find a trace of these things anywhere in the bowels of your computer. Yet everything else in my computer was just fine. It was very selectively removed. So things can be done remotely that are chilling sometimes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I don't actually think it's very difficult for them, the
No,
people
I
that
don't think so
yeah.
either. I don't think so either.
In fact, it's probably within the hardware of the computer itself that the NSA or whoever it is, the CIA has access to anybody's computer that they want with the push of a button. I wouldn't even imagine they would have to hack it. So,
Yeah.
and your phones, including your phones.
Everything. Yeah.
Right. So while we're still on Earth, you did a whole you
While we're still here,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, while we're still covering Earth,
I know I'm just being smart.
um, you did a whole book on underground bases in North Carolina. What do you believe is happening under there and why?
I think there are multiple reasons. And the reason I wrote the book, which is, you can read off the title, I'll forget it. It's Underground Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains.
Yep.
And there's underground facilities to preserve things if there were to be a disaster. It goes back to Washington, D.C., having places where the whole government would be able to exist underground. I understand some of this. But there's a whole network and a whole lot of things go on way beyond just preserving information and a command center. One of the facilities that I had several witnesses about, one man, when he was a very young man, uh, he worked on a tree farm. And from that tree farm, you can see one of the entrances to one of these facilities. And the people that worked at the tree farm saw caged animals being taken into this facility. What were they doing? Experimentation of some kind. I know that social services and stuff has been called in for very bizarre things that have happened in that area. I don't think that's going on. I don't think it's going on right now, but it has in the past. Um, there's also mm, there's like an underground tunnel system where there's instant transportation between one place and another. The reason I did the book was because there's been a lot written about underground facilities in the western part of the United States. Nothing that I could find at the time I did the book revealed anything that was happening here on the eastern side of the United States. And when I began to get information from competent whistleblowers, I began to go, oh boy, this needs to be preserved because nobody's doing this. I haven't done any of my books because I wanted to do a book. There was always a reason, like nobody else did it, or this is going to disappear. Like when I did the book on the Cherokee Little People, when I found out that all the eyewitnesses were up in their 80s, pushing 90, and that nobody had recorded their stories, that's when I decided to do the book on Cherokee Little People. I didn't want that information to disappear, and I believe all the people have now died. So I'm glad that I did that.
So explain a little bit more about the little people. I don't have that book of yours, so maybe you can just, in a nutshell, what's going on there? They're just witnessing this a smaller version of a human, or
They look human. They're typically 3.5 feet tall. Maybe that would be typical. At the time I wrote the book, I used the title Cherokee Little People Were Real. After that book came out, the Cherokees began to trust me, and they realized I wasn't going to make fun of them, which is what white people have done to them forever. And so I began to find out that there are still some little people in the remote areas of the Appalachian Mountains. At the time I wrote the book, I did not know that. So, education keeps expanding and expanding.
right? That applies to the Southwest as well, like Chaco Canyon and other structures. They're made for small people. You have to crawl through the doorways. And I don't care what type of mainstream explanation they give you, it just doesn't make sense. Whenever you go and visit it, you're like, "Why is this so small? Like,
Right.
who are these people?" But we had a Navajo guide that took us through one of the canyons a couple years ago, and we asked her. She used to be a park ranger, and she was actually read in on the little people, and
Mm,
it was part of her training. And
good.
she said they still exist and they'll come out, and she claims that they were the ones who built that stuff and lived in like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon and stuff like that. So I'm sure that they exist all over the world and all over the country too. But yeah, that's very fascinating, and it's cool to me that they decided to trust in you and tell you more about that after the book came out.
Right. I wish that, I mean, the doors wouldn't have opened without the book. So there was no way I was going to learn that until that book got published.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's updated stories buried some ways, somewhere in the website. Um, one of the, let's see, even when I went out to South Dakota, I was on the Indian reservation out there, and I was able to meet a gal who is, at the time, she was 29, and she was the daughter or granddaughter of a shaman. She had some natural abilities herself, otherwise I don't think she would have opened up with me. And she was telling me about little people still living there in South Dakota.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that, absolutely. So, I find it interesting that hurricane hit North Carolina recently. What was the name of that hurricane? The one that wiped out
Helene,
Helene, yeah.
Helene,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that was targeted at some of those underground bases? Do you think that was engineered?
No, I don't.
You
I
don't?
don't. I don't. No, no. The bases wouldn't have been hurt by that at all because
Okay.
the bases are deep under the
They're
ground.
way underground. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So they would not have been impacted at all by that. I do find it peculiar that particular storm did just a hairpin turn and came back in. That was strange. And there was a time that we all could watch HARP footage, where it actually shows how the weather is being manipulated, and you could see it on screen. So for a number of years, I was able to post that on the website. Well, the public can't have access to it anymore, but you could see how they would make storms form. And why they picked on North Carolina, if they did do that, I do not know why, but it certainly wasn't to get rid of the underground bases.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There was
Ye
a lithium there that was one theory that it was exactly where the lithium was, which they use for
I know for
all the
batteries. Yeah.
stuff they're trying to do.
What you mean, so they're trying to wipe it out so they could mine that town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they couldn't do it otherwise or something. So they're just like, all right, we'll just wipe it all out and then scoop it
Yeah,
up for free,
that
basically.
that's very interesting. And there's been many whistleblowers about weather engineering and HARP and all that. It's really as simple as heating up the atmosphere or just changing the temperature, and you can
Right.
and the dew point and stuff like that. So, um, okay, so your research didn't stop here. You've started looking at anomalies on the moon and Mars and even around our sun. So I guess let's just start with the moon. What led you to investigate the moon further, and what have you found?
All right. I didn't expect to find anything on the moon because for decades now, there's been a real effort to cover up all these wonderful things that are mostly on the backside of the moon. So, but I thought, okay, we're still going to try. I was shocked. I found a white pyramid. If I remember correctly, it's like 328 feet on each side. It's on the side of the moon that faces Earth. I was shocked to find that.
Mhm.
Absolutely shocked. Um, like I said, I expected nothing and got something. So, but that's the only thing that I have found on my own that I haven't found somewhere else.
Really? But your book, you do have some other. Maybe you don't have more pictures than that, but there are definitely more anomalies on the moon, as we know, that have been
Oh
blurred
yeah.
out and photoshopped by NASA.
I
Yeah,
do have a photo in there where you can see where they did a sloppy job of airbrushing things out. And you can see like two towers. It
yeah,
tells you that it's two towers, and the small type along the bottom of it, it says that. But, you know, somebody just casually looking at the moon would never find that.
yeah. So this is actually from NASA, from the Navy website, um, which is interesting. And it says at the bottom, two massive towering structures in terrain covered by tampering applications, which
Yeah,
right.
messing with it. Yeah, tapping applications.
Right. I mean, I'll hold this photo up, but I might put it on the screen. Um, yeah, you can see
But
the two.
those blurry, vertical, blurry things are the towers that are being covered up.
Correct. Correct.
Mhm.
And then you went to Mars. How was your trip to Mars?
I've done multiple trips there. Um, Actually, I started exploring Mars in 2011, which, what is that, like 14 years ago? So 14, 15 years ago. And the first thing I found, it's a little bit blurry, but you can clearly tell it's not natural. And it looks like a habitat. Now, when I don't know if I'm using that word correctly, but a habitat is something that's would be designed so that like humans could live in a hostile environment or an environment without oxygen. And that was about 700 feet long. And 5 years later, I'm doing another one of my Mars cruises at the southern, part of the, planet, and found another structure that looked very similar, except it was exactly 10 times bigger. It was 7,000 feet in length. So, sometimes you just have to be persistent and keep looking and looking and looking, and sometimes you get lucky. I think it's going to be much harder to find things now than it was, 14 years ago, because they've gotten wise to us. And I think a whole lot more things are getting blurred out. Um, but that's just one of the things. Another thing was I found three um, um, craft or spacecraft parked on Mars. And the first one I found was about 3.5 feet in not feet, 3.5 miles in diameter. And it had that raised hump in the middle, and it actually cast a shadow on the ground. Um, then I found two other ones that were smaller. One of them, you could see this skid mark, and it was over 4,000 feet in length. And then the vehicle crashed into the soil of Mars and came to a dead halt. Um, but the neat thing about Google, and I have good feelings and bad feelings about Google. With Google, you can actually see these things if they're not covered up. You can measure them, and I was able to, measure how long that skid mark was. I think it was more like 4,400 feet in length.
Wow.
So it had a crash landing. That was not a normal landing.
Right. You gonna say
Yeah.
something, Aaron?
Yeah. Do you know about or have you ever read Monuments of Mars by Richard C. Hoagland? He wrote it in
No,
the came out
he really started an awful lot of this, and I don't know how
early
many years
90s.
back that is. What is
No,
it, back in the
early
90s or
90s.
something?
Early
Yeah,
90s is when he was coming out with this stuff and when that book came out. And I mean, he has, again, NASA's own photos of clearly ancient advanced stuff on Mars, pyramids, glass dome ruins, obelisk, you name it, just all kinds of structures on Mars. And it's NASA's own photos. And he goes through all the data and evidence that prove that.
yeah, he was a pioneer in this type of
Yeah,
thing, for sure,
he was
for
for
sure.
sure. He's still out there doing it too. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't hear very much about him anymore, but, he really made when, Art Bell was on, the
Mhm.
famous, late night talk show, when there wasn't much else competing with him, that was a big show, and he was on there many times.
Yeah, he was like the number one guest on Coast to Coast in the 90s. He was on it all the time. Yeah.
Yep, yep,
So
you're absolutely right. Another thing I found, and I wanna make a point with this, every single one of us needs to kick ourselves in the butt and make sure that we get out of our boxes and think beyond the boxes. And one day I was thinking, I always go to Mars and I go either right to left or left to right, east to west, you know. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go from pole to pole. I'm glad I did because I discovered 27 square cut entrances into the planet that are spread out in a straight line over 16 miles. These are not ancient, at least they don't appear ancient to me. They're all square cut. In round figures, they'll range from 400 feet across to 1,000 feet across. The edges around it, there's like a trim or a metal something. Each of those is different, but they all look very, very similar. Clearly, something is going on
you know
beneath the planet.
that this is absolutely fascinating to me. A few points I want to make. I know I think it was 2010 or something. I don't remember the exact date. That might be too far back. Anyway, there was apparently this Google Mars image of this base, like a spaceport or some sort of military base on Mars, and then Somebody made a video about it. It kind of went viral, and then they put the coordinates, and I went to those exact coordinates, and it was a hilariously blotched out square. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
even they didn't even try, but you couldn't see anything, but it was just like a Photoshop square, but they actually were it got enough traction that they actually were forced to make a statement when they said that it was just an April Fool's joke, which seems to be what they do. They've used that in the
Classic.
past. Yeah, classic.
They've done that for many things. Oh, yeah, after the fact, they'll be like, "Oh, it's just an April Fool's joke,"
Yeah, I
which
actually
usually doesn't even line up with
somewhere on my computer, I actually have that image I found of I went to those coordinates. I'm like, there it is. It's just a square. Um, but this also, you said these entrances that you found on Mars looked current, which would lead someone to believe that either us or an alien extraterrestrial civilization is currently inhabiting Mars and building structures as we speak. What do you have to say to that? Do you believe that it's our military there in some secret capacity?
Instead of me giving my opinion, in the book, I have the actual statement by the man, and I always hesitate saying his name because I really don't know how it's to be pronounced. It's Hayam Rashid. He was the head of the space security for Israel for nearly 30 years. Has a great reputation, and he decided he was just going to um, blow the whistle, let's say. And he gave his statement to the Jerusalem Post in December of 2020. And I have the whole statement in my book, but I just want to read 2 sentences because I think they're really important. The first sentence is, there's an agreement between the US government and the aliens. That's number 1. Number 2, there's an underground base in the depths of Mars where the alien representatives are and also our American astronauts. So just based on this one man, um, he gives credence to the idea that our astronauts are already there, or some kind of space people, and they're working with ETs. Um, Let me see here. There's something else here. I'll read another little short bit. In the December 8, 2020 issue of the Jerusalem Post, he went public about the long-term involvement of Israel and the United States and the Galactic Federation, which is an alliance of various alien races. I put that in there before I started showing evidence of contemporary activity on Mars.
Mhm. Yeah, we actually include one of those news report clips in our upcoming documentary. They pronounce his name Hayam Eshed. I don't know if
Michelle.
Say it for me again, because I'm always messing it up.
Eshed?
Ashed?
Hayam Eshed? Yeah.
Ashed? Okay.
If they're saying it right. I don't who knows? But either way, I do think you have to take something like that seriously because it's not just him. There's a number of military people coming forward now. Um, the Age of Disclosure documentary just came out. They're not talking about life off planet, but they are talking about having reverse engineered this stuff, which would lead you to believe that we have the technology to even accomplish something like that. So
Mm,
it's not so far out there.
We're also
right.
we're getting there to Mars in some other way than the rocketry that they keep
Yeah.
saying is. They keep planning for this trip to Mars, and we're going to go on this rocketry like we've had for decades now. That's just baloney.
Mhm.
They're somehow getting there already. Either they're hitchhiking on ET ships, or we've got technology that we aren't owning up to.
Yeah, there's
Yep.
I can't think of his name. Um, Man, I can't think of his name, but it's this scientist or engineer who claimed that Germany made it there in like the late 40s with some reverse engineered craft, and it actually was a one-way trip and crash landed there. And he talks about it in a few of his statements. So who knows?
Yeah, and then
Well,
you
let me
had
add to that. Let me add to that then. I have met Clark McClellan, who was an astronaut who worked at NASA in Florida. And I lived in Florida at the time he was there, and that's how I met him. Um, and he was friends with Werner von Braun. The two of them seemed to have a lot in common. And whenever von Braun would come from, I assume Houston, to the Space Center in Florida, these two guys would get together, go off away from the conferences, and just talk between themselves. And so through Clark has revealed things that um, von Braun revealed to him. And he said that not only was there a Nazi base down in Antarctica, but that they were flying from Earth to the moon a long time ago. He also told him that that big sighting that they had in 1952, where all these UFOs flew over the capital of the United States, that those were German craft and they weren't ET crafts.
A lot of
Um,
people have said that, and all the evidence points to that. Those were
Yeah.
actually German craft. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's as close as I can get to firsthand information from von Braun.
You
So
know,
that's just one more corroboration that those were German crafts. Yeah.
right. And there's turning out to be a lot of evidence that a lot of our famous UFO sightings and abductions were potentially us or Germans or
Mhm.
not necessarily extraterrestrials. And I'm not saying that all of them.
A lot of it is ETs as well, though.
Right.
Yeah.
What's that one you just sent me a picture of the space race book, the Genesis for a New Space Race? What was that account, Aaron?
The Kenneth Arnold sighting you're
Yes,
talking
that
about?
one. That one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, basically, he says in there that the Kenneth Arnold sighting was not. It wasn't ETs. It was our own. It was our own created ships because there was a base nearby that area that had been there for at least 20 years, and this is in 1947. So that means it had been there at least since the late 20s. Working on this advanced craft, and that was
Right.
like a test flight of it or something like that that he saw.
Right. You know, and then one other thing before we move on, the Betty and Barney Hill incident, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Most people don't know, and I just researched this the other day to verify it. Um, in the hypnosis sessions conducted by Dr. Benjamin Simon in 1964, which were recorded later and published and transcribed, Betty specifically recalled seeing a man on the craft who was not one of the typical gray entities. She described him as looking like a human with somewhat German or Nazi-like features, short hair, a uniform, and he appeared to be working with the extraterrestrials, but was clearly human, which I find to be very interesting. And her exact transcription from the very first session was there was another man there. He looked like almost a German Nazi. He had a round face, dark hair. He wasn't one of them. He was different. So that would lead us to believe that, you know, this has been humans have been involved in this much longer than we imagined. And
Done
you
some
have
interviews with people who they're all women who have been abducted and not treated too kindly. And there's one particular one that's coming to mind. She said that in the background there were our military office people,
right.
so it was done
Yeah.
in tandem.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Even like Whitley Strieber's accounts, he remembers seeing humans in like black uniforms
Right.
with the grays in a lot of his abductions, and he's just like, I don't know who they were or what, but there were humans in black uniforms,
Right.
and a lot of that, a lot of testimony includes things like that.
There's a man, he's no longer living. I have remained friends with his wife. Um, his name is William Pollock. And to give you an idea of his of his background, he designed the security for Air Force One. He was involved with the security that was put around Area 51.
Mhm.
He knew a lot of stuff. And he was called into a special meeting at an area called Tonopah. Tonopah is like another Area 52. It's just not known as well. And so all these people are called in for a meeting and some big official thing. And this plane comes in, and the plane comes right up to the entranceway. This man gets off. He's dressed in what he described as like high European style, with the certain kind of shoes and the nice suit and all that. The
Mhm.
man got off. He walked in. He sat and listened to all these people give their information. And then I believe when he spoke with a German accent. And then he left the same way he came. And the implication that the man drew, was that the Nazis weren't killed off in World War II. They are still exercising power.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a number of accounts that would lead someone to believe that, and I think that is the case.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a story of somebody I met here in Sedona. I'm going to butcher it, but basically, she was a journalist and she went to this military base for some reason, and they asked her if she had German in her blood, if she was a German of German descent, and she said, "Yeah," and because she, like, fit the bill, she looked like it, and then she kinda told him a bit about her story, and then they started speaking to her in German, but it was a US military base, and she said everything changed, and they started treating her differently, and they gave her access to certain areas that they wouldn't normally have, and she realized that she was confused because she started realizing that there were a lot of Germans there, and this is a US military base, so there's just stories like that, that are
It,
s happening still.
I mean, and then the one everyone Project or Operation Paperclip is what everyone knows, where we brought over all these German scientists and engineers after World War II
Right,
into our military industrial complex, into NASA. Wernher von Braun, but the start of
He became
NASA.
the top one in our NASA. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even like hidden that well. It's like pretty obvious when you dig into
right,
things. They infiltrated a long time ago. They actually, yeah, on the surface they lost the war, but really they didn't, and they were already way more technologically advanced. They had all this advanced reverse engineered or otherwise ET kind of technology. They went to Antarctica. They went to South America, but they also went to Antarctica and kind of continued there. And then they infiltrated our own government military industrial complex here and just continued on. And
right,
the Washington, D.C.
yeah,
flyover, like you mentioned earlier, definitely everything points to that was them
right,
basically exercising their power, saying like, we can go in your most sensitive airspace and there's nothing you can do about it,
right, yeah.
unfortunately.
So, let's take a trip to the sun. You found some anomalies around the sun from what I understand.
Okay, I don't get any credit for this part of it.
Okay,
There was a man in the Netherlands who contacted me, and we stayed in touch for about 3 years, and what he did was he would take original NASA photos, uh, and these photos were taken by the SOHO satellites. The SOHO satellites are monitoring the sun all the time, and they take like a picture every 12 minutes. And so he was taking these NASA satellite photos. Not only did he enlarge them, but he has the technology to clean up the interference and the debris, and he zeroed in on them. And the detail of these things is incredible. Very mechanical. They don't look like the UFOs that we've seen on Earth or around Mars or anything in our solar system. These things not only look mechanical, but they also come in different shapes and they're huge. All of them are bigger than Jupiter. Jupiter is our biggest planet. Um, this is another one of those mysteries. This man, his name was Mart Padmos. He suddenly disappeared. I was not able to get in touch with him. His YouTube channel was never updated again. I searched as best I could. I even looked for obituaries in his country. Never found the obituaries, but I never found any inkling of him ever again. My own gut feeling is that the famous Dave we've been talking about didn't want his kind of photos being out there for people to see, and I think he was somehow pressured to stop doing it.
yeah, and that seems
I
to
mean, I can't concretely say that happened, but it certainly is a real possibility.
right. Well, Daniel Salter, who wrote a book, Life with the Cosmos Clearance, who was blowing the whistle on this stuff years ago before he died in, I think, 2000. Well, he wrote the book in 2003. Uh,
Yeah.
and he talked about in one of his early interviews that, he was finding out too much, and they actually approached him, and we either take care of him or we read him into the project, and they read him in and brought him in. So I think they might approach maybe your friend that maybe could have possibly been approached and given the same ultimatum, you know?
I hadn't even considered that possibility.
Yeah, I only know of that because of Daniel, saying matter of factly, that's what happened to him. Is basically he knows too much, we either take care of him or bring him in. And
Well,
they brought him in, and he ended up, um, getting what he says 38 levels above top secret, Cosmos clearance, and he wrote a book and
Mhm.
then died right after he wrote the
And,
book.
and John Lear
38 levels above anything sounds mind-boggling.
Right,
and John Lear has been saying that for a long time as well. The same exact thing. There are 38 levels of clearance above top secret. And who else? Stephen Greer has been saying that for a long time. He might be saying 35, but you'll either hear 35 or 38, somewhere around there, from multiple credentialed people, in my opinion, have said that.
Oh, very interesting.
So is there any other anomalies or things that you found that we haven't covered that
You mean, go ahead.
no, just that we haven't covered today on the show? Is there anything that you'd like to
We hit Mars, we hit the moon, we hit the sun, we hit that's pretty good. That gives people a good, I mean, there's more in there than what we're talking about, but that gives people a good overview of the kind of things that we have.
Right. I just didn't know if there was anywhere else specifically, let's just say even on Earth, that you've come across that hasn't been published into a book yet or anything like that.
Right now I'm blank. Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's okay. So when did you publish your first book about this stuff?
I don't know. You mean the spy in the sky?
Or yeah, when did you start writing books about this topic in particular of just the secrecy and these?
Okay, the copyright on this one, A Spy in the Sky, is 2020 or 2022. And I did The Underground before that. Let me grab it.
Well,
My brain works more with words than it does with numbers. I apologize.
that's okay. I was just going to ask you.
This one right here, Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains, is 2015.
Okay. So basically, you've been, I would say, have you been a believer your whole life? And that's what led you to start looking into this stuff?
No, no. My interest started when I lived in Florida. It's real flat there. You can look up, and that's when I first started seeing UFOs. I actually did lectures about UFOs, and at that time I was very, very aware, and it seemed to be not that well known at the time. Was that the UFOs are often seen over military bases and over nuclear facilities. I remember right now, this is coming to mind. I was doing a lecture, down in this Fort Myers area on the island, Captiva Island. And I was lecturing in a room like this, and then there were, open doors that went to another section. And there were 4 guys sitting over there, kind of by themselves and acting quite differently. And so I boldly went up afterwards and started talking to them. And they said they were part of Operation Blue Book. I have no idea if they were telling me the truth. What can I say? Blue Book was a lot of disinformation, and they probably were trying to see if I needed to be, I don't know, dealt with in some way. I don't know, but they were definitely there. But the ETs were helping me out. I had 4 lectures, may have been 3, in the Fort Myers area. And the night before my primary lecture, a UFO appeared over a bridge going to Captiva. I believe it was the one going to Captiva Island. And it was on the newspaper on that day. So I felt like the ETs were wanting people to know that they were real.
Yeah, that's super interesting, especially that you saw the Project Blue Book guys, if that's who they really
Yeah, but the
were.
fact that if you were a Project Blue Book guy, would you identify yourself that way? I wouldn't. I found that kind of peculiar.
You know what's interesting about that as well?
What?
Officially, Project Blue Book was supposed to have ended in like the early 70s, right?
Okay.
Officially, it ended in like 72 or somewhere around there.
I know
But
this
you
was
ran into it
well over much later than that.
much later than that, and clearly it didn't actually end, which is what almost every time they tell you something ended, it didn't actually end. That's just what they tell the public so that everyone kind of stops.
But don't you find it peculiar they even told me?
Yeah.
That is very interesting that they didn't say something else. They said Project Blue Book. That's it's almost
That
like
they would.
they're like, hey, we're still doing this,
Yeah, I
Still
feel like
interested.
that they don't have a reason to hide that anymore. Like
Not that. That's outdated stuff.
right, and I think they were maybe even gauging your reaction to
It's
if you
possible.
to you saying that, but yeah, clearly, like what we covered earlier, that they're monitoring you. So That's really interesting that they would even send guys to your lecture, which tells me that you're really onto something. Obviously, with the photographs, people can tell the stories all day long, but when you have hard evidence of it and hard evidence of the cover up, then that's a whole extra layer that they have to deal with. And, you probably are protected. I would absolutely say that you might have help from some extraterrestrials. And I'm sure like they're not going to harm you because that would even further validate your claims. But they're definitely letting you know that they have an eye on you. The eye in the sky, the spy in the sky is also on you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Right.
Blue Book ended in 69, actually.
no
Even earlier
kidding.
than
Well,
I
I
thought.
wasn't even thinking about UFOs in '69, I assure you.
December of 69 is when it officially ended.
Right.
I wish I had you as a resource person. You seem to retain information very well.
Thank you. Well, Tyler and I have been researching this stuff for
Yeah.
a while
I have
now,
too,
and
but when it gets down to specifics, so I summarize things in generalities, and I have to go check my own notes to get the specifics.
Right.
oh yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
tough.
yeah, certain
Es
things I tend to
especially when you have years under your belt and it all piles up and you know it's in there somewhere, but you need that little refresher, right?
right.
Eh, um, so what's on the horizon for you? Do you have another book in the works? Are you planning on doing more
Actually, I
lectures?
think I'm not going to do another book. I will post new things on that website, and I also have a Facebook page. Um, again, well, back to this stuff where they're always interfering. I had my original Facebook page was Mary A. Joyce. A as a middle initial so that Joyce is a last name. That got severely hacked. I can't even access that account anymore. I had to start a new one. So if you want to follow me, excuse me, on Facebook, it's just Mary Joyce without the A. Um, and so I had to start from scratch again.
Right, and then so no more books, no more
And
lectures.
I
Yeah.
um I'm taking care of somebody now who has a serious health problem, so I would not be traveling to do lectures and stuff right now. Everything I'm doing is like we're doing right now. Thank goodness for the internet and Zoom.
Right.
You can be anywhere, anywhere, and it's great.
Mhm.
And that's where I have to be limited right now. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and thank you for what you've done and what you're doing and continuing to do, and yeah, I feel like you've got the important stuff out there. So we all have to take care of ourselves and our loved ones too. But we're very grateful for the work that you have done. This is absolutely fascinating. And someone who's not a believer, I think if they went straight to you, that would really get them on the right path as far as understanding the reality of this stuff. And please let the audience know one more time exactly how they can get a book from you.
Okay. The website is Sky Ships Over. We all know how to spell those words. Sky Ships Over. Cashiers is a town, but it's pronounced like a cashier at the grocery store. And skyshipsovercashiers.com. On the homepage, it's the only page that's not filled with pictures. If you go to Editor's Corner at the top of the left-hand side, right at the very top of that, when you open it, gives you all the information about how to get the book.
Okay. And yeah, so just follow the instructions on screen. And I believe that involves mailing you a check and then it gets,
Yeah, we're back to old-timey ways of doing stuff.
hey, it worked. It worked for me. And here we are doing this interview. So I'm very grateful for that. And the books are fascinating and just can't thank you enough.
I
I'm gonna
appreciate what both of you are doing. It's important. Don't ever think it isn't. There's a whole lot of us spread around the world. We each have our own little pond we have to take care of, and we do the best we can. And together, we have more impact than any of us realize.
Right.
So keep up the good
absolutely.
work.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, and you too. And thank you so
All
much for the
righty.
work you're doing.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna have to mail you a check for that book as
yeah,
well.
it's
I
worth it.
want that book.
And for me, it was worth it to also have a copy as a document too, because you never know what happens, and just to have a physical copy of something in my own personal library is important as evidence. And
Gotcha.
so that's why I, personally wanted to just to have a copy. But thank you for joining us, and thanks to the audience for being here today. Don't forget, if you're interested in joining us in Hawaii, you can buy tickets at journeytotruth.online, and you can find everything else we do there. You can follow us on all the social media platforms. Instagram is really where I put a lot of energy into that, but we're on Facebook and X as well. So please give us a like, subscribe, follow. We love you. We can't do this without you. Until next time, have a great evening. Good night. Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.